Hello and welcome to Escape with me, Simon Calder. This is the podcast that takes you north, south, east and west, and I'm joined today by travel guidebook writer Charlotte Hindle.
Hello.
And coming up, I'm going to try and convince Charlotte and hopefully you that overbooking is a good thing, and that Plovdiv, the European capital of culture, jointly this year is worth visiting for 48 hours. And we will also be considering Charlotte's masterclass, which is all about bucket list destinations. But let's start with that talking point, overbooking. A good thing, I claim. Charlotte, where do you stand on it?
I think it's really, really hard if it happens to you. I can understand why airlines will do it. But I do remember turning up to go to New York with my two children and being told that actually, there wasn't room at the moment on the plane and we had to go off and they gave us vouchers. And obviously, it's very, very difficult.
Well, that should not have happened to you at all. It's not the way the rules work and it's not the way the concept works. Now, lots of people say to me, it's ridiculous. When I book a ticket for the theatre doesn't sell more tickets than there are seats available. I say, more fool them. Because if overbooking is handled properly, it is hugely advantageous to passengers, to airlines, to the planet. Let me try and convince you about why this is. Lots of people don't show up for flights. EasyJet says about 5% overall of their passengers who've paid money for a ticket just don't show up.
But they overbook by 10%, I thought.
Well, the amount that any airline overbooks is entirely up to them, and it's entirely when they manage it correctly, it doesn't matter. They can overbook by 50%, by 100%, sell twice as many seats as there are available, as long as they handle things properly when it all goes wrong. So the principle of overbooking is that because people aren't going to turn up, it is much more sensible to sell more tickets. Maybe on a 200-seat flight, you might sell 205 tickets, because then the chances are that 5 of those people won't turn up and that everyone will be able to travel. That has immense advantages if you're an airline, because it means you're selling seats twice effectively. Nobody's suffering. It also means that you are, as a passenger, more likely to get on. If all 200 seats have been sold and you really needed to get to somewhere now, would you rather be told it's all closed, no more seats possible, or would you rather be told yes, you can have one, and the airline sells you the 201st ticket it's sold for a 200-seat flight?
Thank you for that.
Well, I know what my answer is.
Well, I still think that it's risky, but then you go into that whole area of too many people want to get on this flight, who is happy to get off it, and then they offer you money. Now I'm on board with that a tiny bit.
Okay, and the final benefit, by the way, is just for the planet, because obviously if you've got planes flying fuller, then the per person impact on the planet is much lower than if you've got a half full plane. So it's good. The only time it's not good is when the airlines don't follow the law and the morality of overbooking. They are taking a bet. They're saying, we bet we can sell 205 tickets and get away with it. And when we do, that's quite possibly £1,000 extra they've made. They just need, when it goes wrong, to just say, okay, we're going to handle this properly. And the law is kind of on the passenger's side. The law in Europe says if you overbook a flight, then you have to seek volunteers. So that example you gave me, turning up at Heathrow, flying to New York, and they said, oh yeah, we don't know if you got room for you.
But we got on, at that time.
Well, I know, but they should not have put you in the position of being uncertain, because they should have asked everybody who turns up for it, oh, we might have an overbooking situation. Would you be happy to be considered for offloading? We will give you £500 and we'll give you a free flight, or we'll give you an upgrade to World Traveller Plus, and we'll give you a nice dinner while you're waiting. any airline is supposed to incentivize people not to travel. And if it does, by definition, everybody is happy, because the people who accept the offer, and the airline has to keep bidding it up. If £500 doesn't do it, then £600, £700, £1,000. All those people, if their number comes up and they don't travel and they're prepared to fly later, they're going to be delighted. You're going to be delighted because you get on the plane. Nobody is going to be unhappy. Where it goes wrong is where they don't seek volunteers and they say you're going to do this, and when they don't offer enough in terms of an incentive. And unfortunately, the very badly drafted European laws on overbooking, they say you've got to ask for volunteers, but they don't say what you've got to offer them. And so you could, as an airline, just say, oh yeah, we think you might not travel on this flight, we'll give you £1, which you're obviously not going to accept. So that's when they can start offloading people against their will. Nobody should ever be offloaded against their will. If they are, well, it just brings the whole thing into disrepute. And if there are any theatre managers listening out there, do get in touch and I'll talk to you about how you can overbook your theatres. So any more convinced?
Why not? Yes, wonderful idea.
Okay, and if you're an airline out there, make sure you do it properly. Of course, not all airlines overbook. Ryanair notably doesn't, and I would say to them, more fool them. So I'm glad I've sort of convinced you. Time now for our city break slot. And somewhere you may not have visited, Charlotte, Plovdiv in Bulgaria.
No.
Okay, well, it's the second city in Bulgaria, as you will know, European capital of culture, along with Matera in southern Italy. Quite difficult to get to, being a second Bulgarian city. Ryanair will get you there from Stansted, or you can fly to Sofia, the capital, on a range of airlines and travel overland from there. It's about 2-3 hours on the train, and like everything in Bulgaria, very good value. And that makes a trip to Plovdiv really interesting, because all the hotels are very affordable. Lots of good modern ones in the city centre. The Expo Hotel is good. It's a bit kind of boutique-y, but not at a boutique price. And the same goes for shopping. The price of everything kind of halves when you touch down in Bulgaria. I had about the worst meal I've had of the year so far when I was in Plovdiv, just sitting at a very nice open-air cafe on the main square, ordered some breakfast. It took about an hour to arrive and it was stone cold, so I sent it back, which is something I never do. And I learned my lesson that you're not going to get great meals necessarily. What you are going to get, if you are more inclined to go local, is just go to any of the many stalls which are selling Banitsas. These are wonderful pastries filled with typically cheese or meat, and wash it down with Ayran, nothing to do with the well-known country east of Turkey, but a very refreshing yogurt drink. Absolutely ubiquitous,
Sounds
very
nice.
Fresh, very tasty, and very agreeable. Now, Plovdiv is a really funny city. It's built largely on a series of 7 hills, a bit like Rome, and on one of them is the old town, full of beautiful mansions and topped by a kind of ancient fortress. So well worth having a look round there. But I would say if you make your way over to the alternative hill next to it, you'll be able to see it very easily. Go and have a look at the Soviet War Memorial, partly because you're escaping the crowds, and the crowds are in town this year because it's European Capital of Culture, partly because you're seeing this massive Soviet War Memorial put up in the late 1940s after Bulgaria was, well, as they say, liberated, but mostly because you get superb views from there. And the other element of Plovdiv, which I really like, I like to bring you a surprise, is go to H&M, the well-known store. There is one in the main street of Plovdiv. Go in, don't look at any of the clothes, head down to the basement and you will find an actual Roman street that was uncovered when they were putting in the foundations, and you can just be there in the middle of this Roman street, which is all now part of a shop. Tempted at all? I know that I perhaps am more... I more enjoy travelling to Eastern Europe than the average person. What would you say?
I think you could do a 2-centre holiday maybe there. Do you think?
Oh yeah, actually,
Combine
very good
that
point with Sofia. Yeah, or maybe even the coast. Yeah, there's a train which runs straight to Burgas on the coast, the main sort of coastal resort. So yeah, you could do that.
I think that would be more my cup of tea maybe.
Okay, good. Our destination of the week is somewhere I went earlier this summer. My goodness. Skye in the far northwest of Scotland. Is it somewhere you've been, Charlotte?
No, but I've done quite a lot. I love Scotland. Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. What do you think about the weather?
It's always been really nice when I've been there. What do you think of the mosses?
Well, the midges, actually, which are the technical name, they are fairly lively. It depends on a couple of things, and I spent quite a lot of time on Scottish islands as well. And actually, the wilder and the westerner the island, the fewer the midges, because effectively they don't like strong winds, or they don't even like much of a breeze. And if you've got the Atlantic blustering in, that's a good way to put them off. Also avoid anywhere where you're near kind of bogs, marshes, because that's where they breed. And actually I've suffered much worse from midges in the west of Northern Ireland than I have in Scotland. But Skye, now connected by bridge, of course, to mainland Scotland, just a mile or so off the coast, half a mile probably. As soon as you land there, it's like going into another country. Spectacular landscapes, of course, and in particular where I was, which is the Cuillins. Now, these are two mighty ridges of mountains, and the Black Cuillin, so named because it's black rock, looks very different to the normal kind of green-clad kind of Scottish mountain. They are, according to mountaineers I've talked to, the most serious mountains that you are going to find in the United Kingdom. I did a bit of climbing there, couldn't get to the top of one of them, too scary. Another mountaineering term.
Know your limits.
A little bit airy, but I did get to 3,000 feet, and it's real 3,000 feet because you're climbing up from sea level. As with anywhere in Scotland, the further you go from kind of civilization, the more spectacular everything becomes. I stayed in a campsite in Glenbrittle, and that's almost at the far end of everywhere, a kind of end of the world type place. And this is what it sounded like on a particular rainy night in Skye. So that's what you could have enjoyed this summer, a bit of camping out in the rain, but with a beautiful dawn chorus to welcome you as well at the start of the day. And this was, I was there in June around midsummer, so it got dark at about 11, got light at about 3. Charlotte, you are going to give us a masterclass on bucket lists. That's because you told me that you have one. Is Skye on your bucket list?
No, I'm really sorry, it isn't. Bucket lists, very, very personal.
Can we just talk about the topic? Because I don't like the term. The idea is these are places you must go to before you kick the bucket, i.e. die. I would call them dream destinations. But which do you prefer?
I don't mind what you call them, but I actually do think that everybody on their phone should have a list of places that they want to go.
Would they be allowed to write them down in a little notebook instead of putting it on their phone?
They could do, right? Yes. But then you can't look at them, when you don't have your notebook with you, whereas you always have your phone with you. And obviously, your bucket list or your dream destinations, they're going to change. You're going to tick them off, and then you're going to add more. So actually, it's a never-ending list, I think. What's on your list depends on what traveling you have already done. I've been lucky enough to have been to many places. I've been to the Taj Mahal. I've seen the Northern Lights. I've seen polar bears, etc., etc. So I've got maybe more esoteric things on my list now. But I think a lot of people, they're after experiences, aren't they? So, I would definitely say if you haven't seen the Northern Lights, it's really important to experience them. I think maybe on people's bucket list, you might have, say, icebergs, just seeing icebergs in their natural habitat. Wildlife, seeing certain types of wildlife is always delightful. And whether that's maybe going on a safari or, maybe going to the Arctic or the Antarctic. And maybe people want to see rainforests, or they want to see deserts, or they want to experience huge sand dunes like you get in Namibia, or maybe they want to visit some of the amazing canyons that you can get in America, like Bryce Canyon and Grand Canyon, and some of the national parks. You're looking at me.
All I'm wondering is you've got all these fantastic dream destinations, but you've actually got to turn that into some kind of reality. And what's the process that is involved in doing so? And have you got a kind of perspective? Are you thinking there's 20 places on my list, I'm going to go to one of them every year, and then in 20 years' time I'll start another list? Or how are you doing it?
You're saving money, I think, because a lot of your dream destinations will be possibly expensive destinations.
Right, so by not going there, you're saving money.
No, you have to save your money in order to be able to go there. Yes, that's right. Okay, yeah. It depends how many holidays or trips, obviously, you are able to take in a year. If you've got 5 weeks holiday a year, it's going to take longer, obviously, to knock off your list. I go away 8 or 12 times a year, so it's a little bit easier, I suppose. But I think that it would be good, if you can, maybe to look at one dream destination that you have, and try and go and see or experience it every year. So, I mean, how do you handle your dream destinations?
Well, I'm lucky enough that I'm kind of gainfully employed in going to places, so therefore I will tend to be led by the places that I have to go to for whatever reason. So, for example, I'm looking at going to Tokyo very soon to look ahead to the Olympics. So it's more kind of places I need to go to, as opposed to here's a list of places I must go to. And the trouble is, the more places you go to, the more you think this is
the
great.
more you want to go to places.
So I was in Georgia, and it was so exciting on my second trip there that I just thought I can't wait to go back for a third trip, which means that I will have to put off going to Tajikistan, for example. So,
I mean, do you want to know what's on my list at the moment?
Yeah,
it's
exactly
really,
what I want
it's
to know,
very,
yeah.
very long. So I'm
Go
only
on.
going to read you out some of the. I have never been to Beirut.
Okay.
So dying to go to Lebanon. That would be, that would be wonderful. I've got Tehran on there. Weirdly, I've got Frome on my list.
In Somerset, yep. Celebrated place. Yeah.
I want to go there for the market. I've got Niagara Falls. I've got St. Petersburg, which I have never. I know,
that's
which
very,
is coming
very
up
telling.
later.
It is coming up in a moment. Yeah.
Never been to St. Petersburg, and I think maybe the way to do it is to fly to Helsinki and then get a ferry across.
That's certainly one way, or alternatively, just get a relatively cheap Baltic cruise, and I'll be coming on to that. St. Petersburg, the wonder of Russia. I've been lucky enough to travel the length and breadth of Russia, and I can confirm that if all you ever saw of Russia would be St. Petersburg, you have seen the best of it. Anyway, carry on with your bucket list.
Oh, really? Oh, okay. Okay. I've got the Maldives. I've been to the Seychelles, but I would like to see some of that beautiful blue water. But I want to do it by boat, actually. So I know that there is, you can. There are these small boats that are sailing, around the world, and there are some that are sailing in the Maldives. I think that would be, really wonderful. I'd love to see turtles.
Turtles?
Nesting turtles.
Okay.
I know, or in fact, not not necessarily the ones that are nesting, but the ones that are hatching and then the, running down to the sea.
So obviously
Never done that.
timing is all important.
Timing, really, really very, very important. Then there are places I want to go back to, which are still on my bucket list. So I've been to, New York, but there's so much to do there, and that I really, really want to go back there and to experience some of the things that just wasn't possible last time round. What else have I got on here? Oh, I mean, America. There is just so much to do in America, and so many places that I haven't been there. That's definitely on my list, and the whole of South America. Actually.
And do you find that the more you go to places, the more you actually want to put on your bucket list?
Well, as I said, my bucket list it never decreases. It's it's always increasing. In fact, that's probably a reason why I don't have enough storage on my phone. Is that I've got too many of my dream destinations on there.
Well, let's pick up on one of your dream destinations, St. Petersburg, best reached by water because there is a special dispensation from the Russians that for 72 hours you can visit St. Petersburg if you've booked a tour through an official licensed company without having to go through the incredible rigmarole and expense of getting a proper visa. And the main location where this happens is St. Petersburg, but there are 6 other ports as well. And this summer, the Foreign Office put out some really stern advice saying, I will quote this to you and then I'll explore it a little bit more. If your passport is lost or stolen when ashore, you need to obtain a police report. Well, that sounds fair enough. Then you need to travel to the British Embassy in Moscow for a replacement emergency travel document. Now, if you are in St. Petersburg, Moscow is about 400 miles away, over an hour's flight, a 4-hour train journey. And then you've got to make sure that you get to the British Embassy when it's open. You'll be doing all this obviously without a passport because you haven't got your passport, which is going to make things a little bit tricky. You get your emergency travel document, which is a kind of gold-coloured thing, which looks like a little bit of a very flimsy passport. Then you have to go and get an exit visa, and then you have to pay a fine before you leave Russia. And the Foreign Office warns, if not done within the 72-hour visa-free regime, so supposing you lost it just at the end of your 72 hours, then it's going to get really serious. You'll face a court hearing, fine, deportation, and a possible ban from re-entry. And look, a big port of call this summer for the first time is Vladivostok in the far east of Russia.
I'll put that on my list too, actually.
Okay, well, that's very good. At the end of the Trans-Siberian, if you called in there and you lost your passport, you would then have to fly to Moscow 4,000 miles and fly back after you've got your emergency travel document. So be very careful and don't think, I'll leave it in my cabin. That would then be breaking the law because in Russia you have to carry your passport with you everywhere. Oh dear, oh dear. Let's just talk about something very happy. Free travel forever. I'm all in favour of it. I was over in Luxembourg and I got talking to the locals and they said, I was talking about how cheap the travel was and they said, you just wait. It's going to get even cheaper when they make it completely free. This will be coming up sometime in 2020.
What are they making free?
All the travel throughout this country, throughout Luxembourg, is going to be free.
What, trains and buses?
Trains and buses and trams and a funicular.
Fantastic.
And it's all going to cost exactly nothing unless you want to go in first class. They're keeping first class on trains. So you can pay a bit extra and go in first class. So do keep listening to Escape. I will bring you more details. But very exciting time. The very first country on earth to offer completely free public transport. And that's the end of our podcast today. So Charlotte Hindle, you're completely free to go. We'll be back soon again to help you plan your escape. I'm heading to Manchester for 48 hours, so I'll let you know what happens there.
Sounds as good as Froome. Yes.
No, Manchester, of course, top destination for a lot of people coming to the UK, partly attracted by the football teams, which seem to be quite famous, but also a big tourist destination in its own right. Meanwhile, from me, from the fantastic WebVid team, and from Charlotte Hindle, goodbye.
Goodbye.